Ayun. So, good morning, and thank you for being here. No, so as what James said, no, this press con organized by um, uh, LRC, no, which is si Attorney Ryan Rosat is a representative, and also in partnership with our campaign partners, with PMCG, or Philippine Movement for Climate Justice, with some claimants here. Is going to talk through about the this case, no, why this case is being filed, and also why it is important not only for the claimants but for the climate justice movement, not only in the Philippines but globally. No, so let's proceed. Next slide. So before everything else, no, we want to put the entire case in the context of where climate justice is right now. So we have two major developments in the past 5 years. Last 2022, our Commission on Human Rights of the Philippines published its final report after 7 years of investigations. Called the National Inquiry on Climate Change Final Report, which established crucial factual and moral basis on the role of carbon majors in worsening climate change and their active roles in obfuscating climate science and delaying the transition. No? So, naging mahalaga ang document na to kasi naipakita niya na may link, no, from emissions that are from specific companies called carbon majors, which is based on a study by Richard Hide, no, identifying 47, no, carbon majors doon sa study, who have contributed in an outsized way sa total carbon emissions natin ngayon sa mundo, and how those emissions are linked to climate impacts that lead to human rights harms. No? These are elaborated in the NICC document, which really forms the basis for what we're doing right now. And in a certain way, the NICC final report has made it possible, no, for a case like this to be filed. It bolsters the claim that human rights harms have indeed taken place, and that there needs to be accountability when it comes to these harms. The other international development actually just happened last July, where the International Court of Justice finally published its advisory opinion on the role of states and their obligations in respect climate change. And while it's not binding, it sets the tone for climate accountability. No, it says that states have the obligation to regulate corporations, and that countries who have suffered adverse effects of climate change can actually seek reparations. No? So all of these developments, no, have made it more possible and even inevitable that cases like these will be filed. No, next slide, please. Next slide. Ayun. And this is reflected in the growing movement of climate litigation around the world. No, in a report published just this October by UNEP, no, with the Sabine Center, it tracks almost 3,099 climate cases globally already, no, from 55 jurisdictions, and some of them are tried in the international or regional courts, tribunals, quasi-judicial bodies, or other adjudicatory bodies for the processing of these cases. No, and there has been a steady increase, no, since the Paris Agreement in 2015, and this has been steadily rising. You may note that there has been a considerable drop here in 2025, which also indicates, no, that a lot of these cases are already in court and in process for trials. No, so we are seeing really this growing trend of climate litigation. Climate litigation will is on the grounds of states, no, being sued, but also corporations. And right now, around 8% of all of the climate litigation cases are climate litigation cases coming from the global south. No, and a growing number of these cases are also targeting not just countries for their unambitious targets in relation to the Paris Agreement, but more importantly, for the failure, no, of the obligations of these states, and by extension, the failure of these corporations to curb themselves of the climate impacts that they already knew as far back as 1960s.